she's just evil. Like, there's nothing like her.
Why would she even tweet that? Like, don't you have
I think she just sits around in her evil lair whenever she runs out of Eye of Newt and small children to boil.
Hillary Clinton is one of the most disgusting human beings on the planet.
Very much so.
Always has been, always will be, and will be inserting clips on her response to Benghazi several times throughout the interview. I want to show who she is.
She's worth.
Hillary Clinton has once again been dragged back into the searing spotlight. And this time, it isn't the usual suspects like reporters or politicians stirring the pot, it's Tyrus. Yes, the wrestler-turned-explosive commentator has chosen to rip the lid clean off Hillary's vault of secrets, and what tumbles out isn't a dusty box of old scandals. It's a full-blown circus spinning right in public view. This isn't some playful roast delivered with a grin. It's an outright demolition, pounding its way through the darkest corners of Hillary's past with the force of a steel chair smashing down in the center of a wrestling ring. Every strike Tyrus delivers feels like a crushing body slam against the myths and defenses she's spent years constructing, and the shockwaves are impossible to ignore.
When she talks, you kind of get why Bill did what he did. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't, like, it's kind of like, again, I don't condone, cheating, but that's your morning.
Yeah.
You gotta kiss that before you go to bed at night, and then you gotta sleep with one eye open.
Yeah.
Because your buddy Epstein didn't off himself, and she has all this extra footage cut up in the closet. Like,
Hillary Clinton doesn't just step into America's political spotlight. She storms onto that stage as if it already belongs to her. Her resume stretches so endlessly it could rival a CVS receipt, yet somehow she still fails to persuade the public that she's truly their choice. Decades of power, mountains of wealth, and an entire universe of connections should have made her unbeatable. But instead, her career kept collapsing like a kid in gym class bragging about being a star player, only to trip over their own laces and botch the simplest layup ever. It's almost unbelievable. All that polish, all that influence, and still the audience never fully bought the act.
We hear things that we find so fundamentally hard to believe. I mean, I'm in that category. People say things like, oh, that could never happen, But having been a close observer now for quite a number of years of our current president, you have to suspend your disbelief. And you have to do two things simultaneously. You have to both listen to what he says, because he often telegraphs what he's doing.
If you're hooked on this ruthless takedown, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because the ride only gets crazier. This is the same woman who somehow managed to turn losing to Donald Trump, yes, Donald Trump, into not just a political defeat, but a Guinness-level record of public humiliation that echoes through history. Imagine spending years polishing your image, plotting your destiny, and cashing checks from Wall Street to Silicon Valley, only to faceplant into the electoral mud because you overlooked Wisconsin. Yes, Wisconsin, land of cheese, swing votes, and shattered dreams. Hillary brushed it off like an irrelevant square on a Monopoly board, and when the dice rolled, the entire table collapsed under her feet. That mistake wasn't just a blunder, it was historic, a self-inflicted wound that will forever define her career.
They wanted us to believe it was a big naughty redhead that was going around, was going to ruin the world and do all kinds of bad things to us. Turns out the catfish was, hey, we don't boo here, but for this one time you may boo.
And let's not skip over this. Hillary Clinton is the unrivaled queen of contradictions. She painted herself as the fearless defender of the working class, all while pocketing speaking fees that cost more per minute than most families earn in an entire month. Nothing screams woman of the people like cashing $225,000 just to whisper sweet nothings to Goldman Sachs executives. It's the political version of strolling into a backyard cookout wearing a suit stitched from caviar and insisting, "Relax, I totally understand your struggles. The image is absurd, and the hypocrisy couldn't be louder, because while she pretended to be the champion of ordinary Americans, she was cashing checks that placed her in a universe far beyond the lives she claimed to represent.
Apology tour for lying to the American people and ruining 2 years of Trump's presidency and affecting elections with Russiagate, impeachment, and fake dossiers. Oh yeah, let's not forget the P-tape. Turns out it was the Democrats and the lefty media peeing down our backs and telling it was rain.
Her political instincts, if they can even be called instincts, have the grace of a broken GPS. You know the kind, the one that suddenly tells you to turn left into a river, and for a split second, you wonder if it knows something you don't. That's Hillary's career in one image, following wrong turns from Iraq to healthcare reform, somehow always landing on the wrong side of history. And when the fallout came, she didn't adapt. She reacted late, like a student who skimmed the assignment at the last second and tossed in a half-baked essay, praying the teacher would show mercy. Her so-called evolution wasn't growth. It was desperation, a routine of chasing polls instead of leading people. Every blunder became a reminder that her judgment was driven less by vision and more by survival. And survival alone doesn't inspire a nation.
She was the most unlikable candidate in the history of presidents, and that's saying a lot.
But Biden says the same thing.
He's number 2. When Biden says something, does anyone go like, oh?
Right.
No, they used to go, oh, when he...
Now, let's talk about the emails. Oh yes, the endless saga of secrecy and servers that refuses to disappear. Hillary's private setup was less secure than a teenager's abandoned blog, yet we were told it was just an innocent mistake. This wasn't some small slip like forgetting to lock a diary. This was the Secretary of State stashing classified files on a system a 12-year-old with a Hotmail password could have cracked. She turned the State Department into the digital version of AOL dial-up and expected the world to shrug it off. And then came Benghazi, the scandal that sparked countless hearings and turned her into a political meme factory. She became infamous for sitting through marathon grillings with that blank smirk, as if boredom could smother outrage. By 2016, her campaign wasn't strategy. It was malpractice. Democrats handed her the nomination like a family heirloom, ignoring the fact that enthusiasm for her was stuck somewhere between lukewarm soup and expired yogurt. Her entire project of inevitability became laughable. Her unspoken motto might as well have been, "Relax, I've got this." Spoiler alert, she didn't. Instead of winning over swing states, she wasted time polishing her victory playlist. And when the results rolled in, she looked stunned, as if democracy itself had turned on her.
Dealing with the Hillary Clinton emails from a couple years ago saying how she should be in jail and all this other stuff. And it's just point to point to point to point exactly what just happened, proving once and for all it had absolutely nothing to do with Hillary Clinton's emails. It had everything to do with attacking Hillary Clinton, and these people are just so desperate for it that that's what they went for. And of course the hypocrisy is just out on stage for everybody to see.
And then came the excuses. Endless, exhausting excuses. Russia, Facebook memes, the FBI, Bernie Bros, sexism, James Comey, maybe even Putin's dog walker. Everyone and everything shouldered the blame, except the one person who actually ran the campaign. Her loss wasn't some giant conspiracy. It was reality finally delivering the brutal slap she had dodged since the 1990s. This is the same woman who wasn't just picking out China patterns in the White House. She was sweeping up the shattered glass of Bill's scandals while plotting her own rise to power. And somehow, she still managed to alienate countless women with that infamous jab. I suppose I could have stayed home and baked cookies. Nothing screams relatable like mocking everyday life while standing in the White House kitchen. And let's not forget her catastrophic Iraq war vote, a decision that aged about as well as milk left in the summer sun. When the fallout hit, she scrambled to explain it away, claiming she had been misled. Right, because when you're voting on war, skipping the fine print is totally fine.
But, you know, Tyrus, and this goes back to 2016, people were reluctant to talk to pollsters and say, I like Donald Trump. And now, fast forward 8 years later, essentially they're saying, if you like him, you're in a cult. Do you really want to be in a cult?
If the cult that Hillary doesn't like, yeah, sign me in. What do I need? Is it a red hat? I'll get one.
As Secretary of State, Hillary collected miles like a travel addict, boasting about visiting over 100 countries as if passport stamps proved brilliance. But let's be real, shaking hands in airports doesn't make you a foreign policy genius. It makes you a high-priced tourist with a government jet. Then came her clumsy efforts to appeal to young voters. Pure comedy gold. Who can forget the infamous "I carry hot sauce in my purse" stunt? It wasn't authenticity, it was a desperate audition for relevance. Watching her campaign felt like forcing Windows 95 to run TikTok. Outdated, slow, and painfully awkward. Her speeches had all the energy of a boring HR slideshow. Stiff bullet points, robotic gestures, rehearsed pauses, and smiles that never reached her eyes. She tried to sell herself as the cool grandma voters could love. But instead, she came across more like the stern librarian who fines you for whispering too loud.
When the losing side, or someone, she's just a very unlikable person and will say anything to get this attention. But here's the thing, it's changed. America has changed. We no longer listen to that stuff. Now when they say it, we go, that's why I didn't vote for you.
What makes Hillary Clinton so fascinating is that she had every possible advantage lined up, like dominoes ready to fall. And still, she managed to trip over them. Name recognition? Check. A polished political machine? Check. Piles of money, decades of experience, and endless clout? All there. Yet she still slammed into the invisible wall of public mistrust. To the average voter, she didn't inspire. She calculated. Every move looked rehearsed. Every line sounded like it came straight from a focus group. Instead of leading, she became a political algorithm, spitting out talking points like a robot programmed to fake authenticity. And then came the dynasty problem. Americans don't want political royalty. Just like the Bushes, the Clintons acted as if their last name was a golden ticket to power. But voters hate being told their heir is already chosen. So Hillary lingered like a restless ghost, haunting the Democratic Party, resurfacing just enough to remind everyone she could have been president. And in her mind, should have been president. Her interviews drip with bitterness, as if the nation made a mistake and now owes her an apology. But newsflash, America doesn't hand out apology cards for elections.
Her logic makes no sense, but why would she say it? You know, I mean, we can't just keep saying TDS. It's something else. It is. No. I think these are I think they're ego-damaged people.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't make any sense.
Look, she was going to be the first woman president.
Yes.
And who
Isn't
is
that the
she?
best?
If Hillary Clinton has one undeniable strength, it's survival. She clings to politics like a shadow that refuses to disappear. Scandals, defeats, ridicule, she absorbs them all like a political cockroach that simply refuses to die. Whitewater, Travelgate, Lewinsky, Benghazi, the infamous emails, any one of these could have ended another career for good. Yet Hillary kept marching forward, chin high, as if persistence alone would someday force the crown onto her head. But her legacy is far from the triumph she dreamed of. It's tangled, messy, and dripping with irony. She wanted to be the symbol of progress, the first woman president, but instead she became the face of political disconnect. A living cautionary tale of ambition, steamrolling authenticity. And yet here we are, still talking about her years later. Not because she inspires, but because she frustrates. She stands as proof that power without connection is empty, that entitlement is never a winning plan, and that even the most carefully scripted campaigns collapse when they forget the one thing that matters most: the people.
Woman should be in jail. Literally, Hillary Clinton should be behind bars. And so should the people who worked for her who did this. This is so blatantly corrupt. She wanted to distract from her email scandal. She cooked up a plan to accuse Trump of being a Russian agent in order to distract from her own legitimate scandal. She made up a scandal about Trump being a Russian.
Hillary Clinton dreamed of history books hailing her as the trailblazer who shattered the ultimate glass ceiling. Instead, she's remembered as the candidate who lost to Donald Trump, the cautionary tale proving inevitability is never enough to win. And maybe that's the cruelest twist. After decades of speeches, scandals, and relentless ambition, her entire legacy boils down to one brutal punchline. She could have been president. She thought she should have been president, but she wasn't. And of course, there were the endless scandals: Whitewater, Travelgate, Filegate. If it ended with gate, it hovered around the Clintons like a storm cloud. They practically turned controversy into a family pastime, a game of who can spark the next scandal before dessert. Take Whitewater, that messy Arkansas real estate fiasco. Most Americans couldn't even explain it, and that's the problem. When your finances are so murky that even historians get migraines unraveling them, it's hardly the clean slate you want for a presidential run. It was like playing Monopoly and somehow landing not on Boardwalk, but straight into an FBI investigation.
Greatest achievement Trump ever did when they read the history books. It'll be like, maybe there'll be these wars will be solved in economy, but then there'll be a two-page spread on how he beat Hillary and how that will always be. He'll be on Mount Rushmore for that.
You know?
They should do like called a Mount Trump, where they have the heads of the people he beat. So they've already got Hillary, and they got Kamala, and then maybe he can run again. You know, we still don't know, right?
One of his best lines ever was when he was first elected, and the people around him said, "We got to go for Hillary now. Lock her up, lock her up." And he said, "Nah, just let it go. She lost. She's going to have to live with that for the rest of."
And then came the Clinton Foundation, sold as a shining beacon of philanthropy. But beneath the surface, it looked more like a political cash register disguised as charity. Sure, it sprinkled in good deeds, but those deeds were wrapped in massive speaking fees, fat donations, and cozy handshakes with world leaders who suddenly discovered their charitable spirit whenever Hillary's influence was peaking. Funny enough, that generosity dried up almost instantly the moment her power started slipping away. Turns out, people weren't donating to save the world. They were donating to save their access to power. Who knew charity could work like a vending machine? Insert check, collect favor. And then there was the Uranium One deal, a saga that sounded more like the plot of a low-budget Bond film than real policy. A Russian company gained control of uranium, Hillary's State Department signed off, and conspiracy theories exploded. Even without the wild rumors, the optics were a disaster. And her worst habit has always been misreading the room, like with the infamous basket of deplorables remark. Politically, it was the equivalent of insulting half your dinner guests before asking them to pass the potatoes. In one soundbite, she dismissed millions of voters and then acted shocked when they didn't rally behind her. Who could have guessed that calling people garbage doesn't win elections?
This sort of haggard old woman. I ran against her in 2006 for the Senate. She was riding high. She was going to be the first woman president. The world was at her feet, and now look at her.
Yeah, is that the greatest?
I mean, you don't even want to look at her.
Done. The greatest achievement Trump ever did when they read the history books. It'll be like, maybe there'll be these wars will be solved in economy, but then there'll be a two-page spread on how he beat Hillary and how that will always be. He'll be on Mount Rushmore.
The irony is, Hillary Clinton might actually have been a capable president, organized, detail-driven, and policy-savvy. But here's the truth. Competence alone doesn't win elections. Voters don't want someone who sounds like they're grading homework every time they speak. They want a leader, not a stern hall monitor with a pointer stick. Hillary wanted the crown, but she never figured out how to win the kingdom. And in the end, her obsession with power became the very trap that destroyed her. Decades of maneuvering, scheming, and climbing all built up to 2016. The coronation she thought was destiny. But in a Shakespearean twist worthy of reality TV, it all collapsed before the world's eyes. Why? Because she couldn't connect with the people she needed most. Her book tours, documentaries, and endless interviews since then have all carried the same undertone. I should have been president. It's turned into the longest acceptance speech for an award she never won. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party has struggled to move forward, yet Hillary's shadow lingers, like political glitter that refuses to vacuum out, sticking around long after the party ended.
She is right that the kids on the subway aren't scared, though, but that's because they're in gangs.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, per Katie's point earlier, though, she is essentially, if you follow her logic, violent crime, good, leave it alone.
Yeah, that's great.
The bitter irony is that Hillary Clinton spent her career chasing history. And yes, she made history, but not the way she dreamed. She became the first woman to nearly seize the presidency, but also the first nominee to lose to a man who wore scandals like trophies. Instead of breaking the glass ceiling, she became the glass ceiling, unyielding, blocking everyone behind her from rising. That's her legacy. Brilliance tangled with blunders, ambition fused with arrogance, resilience wrapped in robotic coldness. She could have been the trailblazer who reshaped politics, but instead, she became the cautionary tale of elitism gone wrong. She wanted to be remembered as the woman who changed history. Instead, she's remembered as the one who proved inevitability is not a plan, and entitlement is not a trait voters admire. Hillary longed to be unforgettable, and she is, but for all the wrong reasons. Her story stands as both a warning and a spectacle, proof that power without connection collapses under its own weight, no matter how polished the resume behind it.